Welcome to Time to Press Pause, a podcast for CEOs by CEOs. I'm your host, Ellen Williams, CEO of The Salient Strategist, and today I'm speaking with Adrienne Garland. Adrienne is CEO of She Leads Media, a media, marketing, and visibility consultancy offering women leaders and entrepreneurs strategic consulting, educational content, conferences, and a podcast network to share their stories, thoughts, and opinions with the world. She is dedicated to helping women launch and scale their businesses and gain media visibility for economic and social impact. Hey, Adrienne, it's great to see you. Welcome to Time to Press Pause.
I am so excited to be here, Ellen. I cannot wait to share, I think, maybe even more than one story about when I press pause.
That would be great. It's nice to hear when people learn from the first and understand the value and do it again. So, Adrienne, we've been colleagues, friends, professionals together for many years. I remember being at one of your events maybe a decade ago. You are definitely a pioneer in the strong women movement, and I certainly appreciate that.
Oh my gosh, that is so nice. And it's so funny because, this year is actually the 10th anniversary of the conference. It was under a different name all those years ago, but it's the 10th year because we did take 1 year off because of COVID. So
Sure.
it's 11 years, but I am calling it the official 10th anniversary this year.
Very exciting.
Yeah.
So without further ado, please do share with us your story of pressing pause.
Yeah. And Ellen, I just think that what you're doing is so amazing because we don't often hear the stories of people who have taken a step back. And I think it is so important to bring that to the forefront because a lot of times in the media, just see all of the wins, right?
Right.
And that is probably only 20% of the story. There's so many struggles that go on behind the scenes. And when I mentioned earlier that I've probably been through a couple of different pauses, I'm even thinking to myself, man, after the 10th year anniversary of the conference, I might even be thinking about another pause coming up.
A future
So
pause.
a future pause, and I'm wondering, should I talk about that? But I think we can think about maybe our professional selves in a couple of different chapters. I like to think about, things as chapters. And my first chapter was really in the corporate world. So before I went out on my own and started the conference and my business, I had been in corporate America, where I learned a lot about the way that things are and the way that things work. And I had some really great times. And I also had some really big lessons. I learned a lot of lessons.
Yep.
And those lessons, I think, led me to where I am today. And where I am today is not necessarily where I thought I would ever be. And I don't think that I know that I'm not finished yet. I'm sure that you can, I'm sure that you're not finished yet either, right? We're not done. We're
That's
like
correct.
teenagers.
Yep. I am just starting my next
We're
chapter
just
for
starting,
sure.
right?
Yep.
Yeah. And oh my gosh, it's so exciting and interesting. But the first big pause I would say that I took was when I moved from corporate into entrepreneurship. And I thought that it was going to be an easy transition, and it was not. And even after 10 years of being an entrepreneur, I still feel like there's so much more that I need to learn. And I kind of wish that I gave that pause period even more attention. And I recognized that it should have been a pause, like a power pause. I have a really good
Power pause.
power pause.
I
I'm
love
stealing
that.
that. I know it's so good. I'm stealing that from a very good friend of mine, Paulina Lopez, and she always talks about the power pause because
Great.
it's that period that you really get to reflect and you're intentional about what you're doing, the fact that you're taking that pause so that you can move into what's ever next with deliberate intention, right?
Intention. Yeah, that's the perfect
Oh,
word.
oh, it's so good. And I always say the power pause after I heard her say it one time. I'm like, that's brilliant. Um, but I thought that when, because in my corporate life, I had been pretty successful without really with doing the things that they sort of taught us to do as we were, going through school, work hard, do what your boss tells you to do, follow the rules. I did well. It sort of worked for me until it didn't anymore. And I think there were a lot of different points in my life that kind of converged, which led me to taking that big pause and deciding that, you know what, corporate is not for me anymore. I'm not growing. I'm just doing what everybody else is telling me to do and what they expect of me. And it's not helping me become the person that I want to be, you
That's
know?
that's a great way to identify when it's time to press pause. And I love what you said that it was working for you for a while, right? So what works today doesn't necessarily work a year, 2 years, 5 years from now. And being cognizant of that and knowing that it was time for you
Yeah.
to take that step back and make a different decision. That's great.
Yeah. And, sometimes our pauses are also forced on us, right?
True, very true.
So people, I hear people talk about the fact that, if they get laid off or, it's sort of like the best thing that ever happened to them and they get to reassess. I did not get laid off. I did sort of get put on a performance improvement plan,
I've
which,
been on those.
oh my God. I I used to hate talking about that story because I felt such shame around it because I'm the type of
Mm.
person that never got, called down to the principal's office or anything like that. I was always such a goody two shoes. And and
I
always
spent more
like
time in the principal's office as a mom than I did as a kid.
I love that. I love that. Right. It's not so bad either. They don't really want to punish you. They just want to help you to sort of correct the behavior and they're there to support you, which I don't think that I ever realized that until same my kids getting in trouble. But as an adult, sort of getting put on a performance improvement plan when you had been when I had been the one that was always like top performer, getting the best bonus, like all of the good stuff. And then, being faced with being put on a performance improvement plan, it was a real slap in the face to me and a hit to who I thought I was, my ego. And so that one incident and then the subsequent what I did to sort of correct whatever they were trying to correct which I still don't agree with but whatever they were trying to correct and the fact that I didn't correct it in the manner with which they wanted it corrected led
Mm.
me to recognize that I didn't belong in the place that I was at. It was super clear to me that I didn't belong in a place that didn't value the things that I valued. And so as soon as it was clear like that this wasn't going to be a fit, I just had a discussion like, what do we need to do to get me out of here? Because I do not belong here. Like, I'm out. And it was crystal clear. I didn't even think about the ramifications or anything that was going to come next, until the next day.
And now what?
Woo! And now what? And the pausing moment was like, well, hey, like this was easy enough to have done so well in corporate and to have the confidence to say, well, it doesn't, job doesn't really matter. I can do whatever I want to do. I have this level of confidence. Let me just start a business with everything that I know and everything that I've done. Easy peasy, right? Oh my God, no. Holy. So I took a couple of months because I had a little bit of a buffer because I, negotiated a little package there. So I had a little bit of a buffer. And what I did during that time was I did a lot of like spiritual things. I think I hired it was sort of like a hybrid coach that was like a little spiritual, a little professional. I signed up for like a jogging thing. I, went back to just being physical and wanting to get myself in shape because I had sort of gotten away from all of that. So during my pause time, which wasn't very long, I decided that I wanted to get healthy and I wanted to slow down, and that what I wanted the next part of my life to be about was more about sort of being around. Like, and I know that that sounds weird, but it's like I wanted to be around. Because my job before that had taken me into New York City every single day. I was traveling. I would stay in the city late. I'd work weekends. It was very, very busy. And so when this all happened, I said, I want to be around. I want to be around for my kids. I want to be around for my family. I want to enjoy this beautiful town. I live in this beautiful town in Long Island, and I just want to be around, and I want to be there for myself. And I want to do that for as long as it sort of works for me. And so that's really, what I started to do. And I think what I'm still doing to this day, although in these last 10 years, there have been a lot of pivots and changes
Mm-hmm.
that I've learned from, which almost leads me to what I'm thinking of next, because 10 years is like it's a block of time.
It's a good block of time. It's a decade. And
It's a
lots of
decade.
things change in 10 years, especially the last 10.
Yeah. And, COVID was sort of in there. And that was another reflection point for me to think about, like, what is my business? What am I doing? Especially because I was working at that time with not only my conference, which was an in-person conference, but I was also working with clients that they did all in-person events. And I loved it. And then all of a sudden, overnight, my clients were gone. My business was gone. And my revenue fell by, like, I mean, I think in that year, my revenue fell to something like $20,000. I mean, it was crazy.
Yeah,
So, and to build back up from there, it's almost like that's starting from zero, really.
almost. Yeah.
It's
With
really
the
starting from
exception
zero.
of having the experience that you bring with you, the relationships you have with you, and that's priceless, right?
That's priceless. So it's like reimagining what that all means. And I think that what happened after that is I thought, let me build this back up to where it was. And I wish I went on your podcast at that time because I think maybe I would have been a little bit more reflective about it. Like, maybe don't build it back up to what it was. Maybe reimagine it as something else. I didn't give myself that time because I was very concerned with just sort of building it back up. And it hasn't really gotten to where it was before the pandemic, but one of the gifts that I was given, which was so serendipitous, and I just think, I mean, I just think it was luck. There was a woman that I had working for me, Sue. And if you're listening, you know who you are. Um, but she was doing some work for me, and she had been at ESPN for, I think it was like 20 or 25 years. And she knew somebody that was teaching at NYU as an adjunct instructor. And he reached out to her because she's Miss Super Connector. And he said, "Do you know anybody that would be interested in potentially teaching an entrepreneurship class at the NYU Tisch Center for Hospitality and Events?" And she was like, I know Adrienne, like right here. And I spoke to the person that was in charge the next day. They brought me in the next day, and I have been teaching at NYU ever since, which then led me to another opportunity because I was teaching entrepreneurship to teach entrepreneurship at Rice University in their online MBA program, which led me to this other amazing opportunity that I have that I've done for the last, I think it's 2.5 years, is that I take students on these global field experiences to countries mainly in South America, and they work on consulting projects for startup businesses in these emerging markets. So
Wow. Okay.
yeah.
Okay. Let's pause. Wow, that is quite the evolution of events and change in your life. So you didn't necessarily take the time to reimagine, but it seems like it happened anyway.
Yeah. It reimagined me, and I think that that's why what we were talking about before, I think that it's due time for a pause, not to, maybe like burn anything down, but to really assess like what's next, because the teaching and the traveling and the helping of like these startup businesses is I just feel like it's everything. It's amazing.
So going back to what you said earlier, one of the things you said when you left corporate was it didn't align with your values. And I heard that crystal clear. And now the excitement in your voice talking about what you're doing now sounds like, although it was a little bit of a path, that you are very much in alignment with your values.
Very much. And, it's funny. I was just sort of cleaning things out the other day because my son is graduating from college and I'm just trying to get everything in order, which is, I think, another reason why it's like the time in my life, because we can't pull things apart, right? Like as our kids go through the phases of their lives, we are sort of always tracking with them too. So my oldest son is graduating from college and we're trying to figure out, when he comes home, what are we going to do? And what's our house situation going to be and everything. But I was cleaning some stuff out, and I looked in a book that I had written in because I want to also get rid of some stuff. And I have in there, like, what do I want to do? What do I want to be? And it's like education, travel, helping women. And I'm like, oh my God, like I wrote this like 15, 20 years ago. It's
Amazing.
amazing.
Amazing. It's amazing what happens when you do stay true to your core values. And the more I speak to people, the more I find that those pauses where you realign with who you really are, on the other side of that, uh, unforeseen things happen in addition to things that you start to create, right? And it makes a big difference. It makes a big difference in just being happy, but I think it also makes a difference in, to refer back to what you said, in your performance, right? Your
Yeah.
performance review. If you're just not feeling it and it's not working anymore, and you're just doing it because, hey, it worked for me and that's what I do, a little bit of a wake up call, right? A
Yeah.
performance review, and then a shift, or a true, new chapter that's written some great additional chapters. How exciting. So I am definitely excited to see what your next chapter is, for
I
sure.
am too. And, it's so funny. It's like you hear stories from people and they talk about the universe has like these grand plans for you, and there's totally a part of me that believes that wholeheartedly, and then there's the other part of me like, no, I just don't believe that, and because I'm a control freak at the same time, right? I think a lot of us are high achievers, right? But really, I do think that there has to be some greater force at work, because even when you were just saying that back to me, I was like, gosh, it is true. Sometimes like the things that happen to us that we feel like are negative, like a performance review in the moment. I mean, believe me, I was crying. It's not like I did not take it lightly. I really was crushed, and it took me years to get over it. And so, but it was like that thing that said to me, you don't belong here. Like, you don't belong here, Adrienne, and you don't fit in. And that feels bad,
Mm.
right? To not feel like you fit in some place where you think that you should be. But I didn't belong there, and I didn't recognize that I didn't belong there. I really do belong somewhere else. And it's amazing. Some of the things that just like even literally before we got on this podcast, I got a note from a grad student, and I just got back from Panama with her. Just it was the week before last. And she said, like, I just want to thank you for like the most amazing experience. I just want to keep in touch with you. And you know, like that's all it takes for me. Like I don't know. It just like that's why I keep doing it, because something like that, I connected with someone that is so she's she's amazing. She's this heart-centered person, and I want to be in her life. You know what I mean?
Sure.
And I feel like I could be a friend of hers.
So now you're getting the opposite signs that this is exactly where you belong.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. It's incredible. Just when people are like, thank you, and when I'm like, I didn't do, I didn't do anything. I was, I felt like I was hanging out, you know, hanging out in
That
Panama,
that's the
shopping.
best. That's the best when you don't feel like you're doing anything, yet you're getting accolades. You're getting people telling you the impact that you're having. I think that's an amazing crossroad of values and passion. That's exactly where I think we can all live our best life, right? In that spot.
Yeah. But we're not taught how to get there,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
We're very much taught to tamp down those feelings of alignment and follow a certain path that is like a success path. It pulls us away from who we are and what makes our hearts and our souls happy. And we can be successful with all of those things together. Like we can be happy, we can have like these joyful, soulful experiences, and, we can earn a great living and impact people in a positive way. We don't have to be miserable and earn a lot of money and think that's success, but we're not taught how to do that.
Yeah. Yeah, this reminds me, and we'll wrap it up here because your story was amazing. This reminds me of the movie Baby Boom. I don't know if you
Hmm.
saw that. It's an older movie with Diane Keaton, and she's this hotshot advertising executive, and she inherits a baby from her sister or some family member who passes in an accident. And so she tries to do both, bring the baby to work, and it doesn't work out. And her boss gives her a very small account that almost like a performance, right? Um, I'm sorry, performance review
Improvement
for
plan. Pip.
thanks, a PIP, right? A PIP. So it's similar, right? Where she's just disappointed, and he goes, "We, you can't have it all. No one can." So
Mm.
she quits, and she buys a huge house up in Vermont, and tries to fit in. And she has this huge apple orchard, and she starts making baby food, and then she starts selling baby food, and then she really starts selling baby food, and she comes back. Spoiler alert, everybody. She comes back to this like 50-year-old movie. She comes back in because now they've called her back to the agency because they have a client who wants to buy her business.
Oh my God.
So she comes back, and she's back in her suit, and she's sitting at the table, and they offer her, at the time, this great, $1 million and an apartment and all that. And she goes into the bathroom, and she's like, yeah, I'm back. And she's walking back to the boardroom, and you see her like contemplating, and she stands there, and she's like, no, she goes, I'm going to have to pass. You once told me I can't have it all, but I like my farm, and I can do this just as well as you can. And she goes back to the farm,
Oh my
and she
God.
she has it all. She has
Yeah.
her baby and her life, and she can do it too. So everything you were just
Mm,
saying sort of reminded me of that. That's for so many years people said you can't have it all. But I
mm,
think the definition of all, what is the definition of all, right? I can have it all. I don't have to have, 100 miles an hour on all facets, but I
yeah.
should be able to have all facets in harmony in my life, right?
Yeah.
I'm not a fan of the word balance, but I think if you can have harmony across all the different facets of your life and really be happy, that's that's
Success.
attainable. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's attainable. You can have it all.
Oh, I love that, Ellen. I think that's so amazing. Yeah, that's such a great story. And now I want to go watch the movie.
It's called Baby Boom.
Baby
It's a good
Boom.
movie.
It, yeah,
I love the underdog
yeah,
movies. I've always loved the underdog movies.
yeah, I love that. That's awesome.
So, Adrienne, thank you so much for joining me here today. Great story. Any last words of wisdom, advice for CEOs, entrepreneurs um, that you think you can inspire?
Yeah, thank you. And I really enjoyed this. Thank you so much for just letting me share my story. I do hope that people can take away a little something from it. I think that it's really important to take pauses often and reflect. Um, I am very focused on women entrepreneurs, and something that I don't do enough and that I think we all need to do is to take pauses and give ourselves credit for how far we have come and how much we have been able to accomplish before we move on to our next thing and next thing. Because I see a lot of women just, accomplishing and not giving ourselves the just the credit that we are due. So let's take more pauses more often to just give ourselves credit, just as like an honoring ritual, maybe.
That's great advice. So we need applause pauses.
Exactly.
Applause pauses. I love it. That's great advice. Excellent. Thank you so much, Adrienne.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Time to Press Pause. To learn more about Adrienne Garland, go to sheleadsmedia.com. To learn more about me, go to thesalientstrategist.com. And be sure to join us again wherever you listen to your podcasts.